Ashby is attempting to get into contact with one of the applicants. So we'll give her another minute. We'll go ahead and get started, whether she's here or not, but give us another 1 or 2 minutes. Just now. Sure. All right, we'll go ahead and start the meeting. It's 5:17. This is the October 15, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning present here today. We do have a full board. We have Allison Grass, Hal Morrison, Robin Richards, John Bennett, Bill Goodwin Jr., Chappie McKay, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Robert Summerfield, Penny Ashby, and Allison Craig. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application, or if there is opposition to the application, we treat the matter as contested, hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do 3 things. Number 1, hear appeals of the zoning administrator. Number 2, grant special exceptions of fact-finding function of the board. And number 3, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. If you're here and you intend to speak tonight by city ordinance, I'm required to swear you in. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You'll signify by saying, I do. Thank you. All right, we do have one deferral on our agenda this evening. The deferral is B1, new application, 383 Sumter. So we won't hear B1. So if you're here for 383 Sumter, you can be excused. We won't be addressing that matter this evening. So let's go to our agenda. The first item on our agenda, A, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number 1, review minutes of the October 1, 2024 meeting. We did have a few absences, and so not everybody can vote on this one, but you do have draft meeting minutes that have been circulated to you in your packet of materials for this meeting. And so do I hear a motion from somebody who was in attendance? Ben and I remember you were there, and Grass seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No one is opposed, but we had 3.
I was not there.
I was
Abstained. Okay. All right, so Mr. Morrison, Mr. McKay, and Ms. Richards abstained from that vote. Otherwise, it's passes 5-0. All right, the next item on our agenda is A2, 165 President Street, West Side, Council District 6, TMS number 460-11-01-111, Zone GB, requesting a special exception under Section 54-511 to allow a takeout restaurant with 172 square feet of inside patron use area without 3 required off-street parking spaces. The owner is DLR3 LLC. The applicant is Jason P.A. and Mr. Summerfield.
Ms. Ashby did the initial work on this one, so she will be presenting this matter from its original date.
Great, thank you, Ms. Ashby.
Thank you, Mr. Tibbles. On the screen is the zoning map of this property. And it is in the north of the crosstown in the west side neighborhood area, and it has a commercial zoning, and that zoning is GB. The second slide shows this picture, this property in an aerial view, where it's this 1-story structure that is on a very small lot adjacent to other buildings, and it's just sort of nestled within that block of President Street. The use proposed is for a takeout restaurant. The area for the takeout restaurant is not that large. It's actually 172 square feet. As you would notice on the screen, this property has no curb cut. So there is no access for a driveway. There is no access for parking. And this lot has been in this configuration, I think, for as long as any of us can remember. So the request is just for parking. The use is a permitted use. To be very truthful, the city has been asked what can be done on this lot. We've looked at a residential use. We've looked at even an office use. And the reason why we felt that this use was at least more appropriate is because it does not require a whole lot of manpower. It's a takeout restaurant, and the square footage is very small. When we apply our parking requirements, parking is based on the square footage of a use, like for office, in this case, a little restaurant. So a residence would be very difficult to be built on this property. And an office, again, you need people that need to be able to be in a place for a definite period of time. This is takeout only. So the request for a parking special exception is what is the main issue. We also believe that since it is a takeout restaurant, that it would not adversely affect neighboring properties. And we also feel that it is a takeout restaurant, that there would be a lot of pedestrian traffic, people walking to this building to be served. The applicant has made efforts to provide parking, but there are not any public garages or surface lots in the area for consideration. We have support, as it is shown on the screen, from neighbors in this area. And it's my understanding that the applicant has also spoken to the West Side Neighborhood Association. They did not voice any opposition. There are 2 slides on this, for this application I would like to bring your attention to. This first slide is a 1978 zoning map. It's a zoning map that Charleston County used to use many, many years ago before we have all the photometry and aerial capability to show properties on a lot. And if we can get the cursor to show this building, the reason why this map is up here and the map after it is up here, we wanted to show that even in 1978, this lot is pretty much the size it is today. And that building on that lot, even though it's close, but it's no encroachment onto adjacent lot. It's not an encroachment to the left of the lot, to the right of the lot, or even to the rear of the lot. And we do have a recent survey that shows how this building is situated. The next slide is the same map. It's just a later version. It's a
Okay.
1998 version.
Ms. Ashby, may I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
The letters that are written on these buildings, is that zoning? So R for residential or C for commercial? or
Tax classification.
It's a tax classification.
Tax
Yes.
classification?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So R would be residential.
Okay,
Okay, and I believe the wording, the marking on that is is that a C?
yes, there's a C
Yes.
on
So
this building,
C means commercial.
right,
And I do know that many, many years ago, there was a commercial use. I don't want to be quoted, but I think it might have been a laundromat. Maybe the applicant may know more than me. But the reason why these maps have been included in this presentation is just to show the history of use. It has always been commercial. It has never been a residence. And I believe that in this particular situation, that is important. So we wanted to share this information as well as the survey that has been done to show this building on the lot. Again, it can't have any parking because there is no curb cut that could provide a driveway. It is just not going to be able to happen. The city feels that the use the applicant is proposing is appropriate. A takeout restaurant is not as should I say, intrusive as a sit-down restaurant. You take it, you go. And the fact that the zoning ordinance also addresses properties that cannot provide parking, and they address it in terms of whether or not, one, the use is permitted, and that is the case, the use is permitted. It also addresses how the building sits on the lot, its configuration. Is there potential for any kind of driveway access or parking? The answer is no. And it also talks about whether or not the applicant has made any effort to try to get parking. And lastly, the zoning ordinance also addresses whether or not the granting of a use would adversely affect neighboring properties. We are aware that there are concerns from residents regarding this application, but we feel that something needs to be done to this building. We don't want it to sit vacant for any longer because it will just continue to deteriorate. And I'm sure that that would not be something that would be in character for the neighborhood. And a deteriorated building is definitely something that is adversely, the neighbors would be adversely affected by a deteriorated building. The city's recommendation for this application is to approve it. Thank you.
all right, thank you, Ms. Ashby, and just by a show of hands, is there anyone here opposed to the application? anyone here in opposition to the application? Okay, I see. I see at least one, and so that means that we'll hear, okay, a couple folks are opposed to the application. Thank you, sir. So that means that we'll go ahead and hear from the applicant. Is the applicant here? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jason Pay. I'm one of the owners of this building. I've owned it for 10 years. A lot of the housing, the new housing on that street in Noonan and Alway Street, I had a lot to do with, including moving that house off to Crosstown where the Kempton building sits now. I really just want to fix it, make it a productive part of society. We tried to be thoughtful with what we do there in order to minimize the parking strain on the neighborhood.
Any questions for Mr. Pay while he's here? Yes.
I just wanted to ask what your hours of operation will be.
I don't remember what, it was within the zoning allowance. I think we were from like 9 to 10.
Thank you.
I will add that the property zone GB, general business, there are no restriction to hours of operation. There are scenarios where those hours can be restricted, but he could operate within the hours that he has mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Pay while he's here?
And it was a drop-off cleaners previously.
Okay, well, thank you very much, sir. We may get you back up here in a few minutes. All right, so anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Thank you, ma'am, and if you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Claudette Hart, and I live at 183 West Poplar Street, which is on the east side of town. My concern is about the parking, the off-street parking spaces not being required. You are looking at this as a takeout restaurant. However, you will find that with a takeout restaurant, you always have Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of those type of organizations that are catering to people who are not coming out to get the food, but they are sending DoorDash out to get food for them. DoorDash needs a place to park when they come. Uber Eats needs a place to park when they come. And so you are saying that there are no spaces required for this property. However, I don't see how that could be feasible because you have only 3 spaces on the street as it is. And you have 3 other residents on the street and they all have cars. Tell me, how is that possible if they have someone coming to visit them and they don't have spaces? I don't feel that this is appropriate for this restaurant. I would suggest that you go back to the drawing board and perhaps do something that would be recommended for children that are in the neighborhood. You can do something that would work with children in the neighborhood. They need after-school tutoring, that would be an ideal place. They need mentorship, that would be an ideal place. They need etiquette classes, that would be an ideal place. So I think that you need to reconsider this and think about something different. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Surratt.
Ms. Huh?
It's hard.
Ms. Claudia?
Claudette.
All right, sir.
My name is Albert Nelson, and I live directly across the street from this building. And I'm handicapped. And the people talk about putting a handicap parking there. But everybody park in the spot. And they say, well, I ain't gonna be there but a minute. But in the meantime, I'm in a situation where I can't even park in front of my house. I can't even park in the front of my yard because somebody got my house blocked in and they got my parking space going into the yard blocked up. Now, I know people saying, well, the city will ticket them. It take you a half hour to get a policeman there to get somebody. In the meantime, I'm being handicapped and a disadvantage to me. So now I agree that something need to be there, maybe. But I don't think it should be arrested with. And you talk about a sandwich shop, everybody here walking to get no sandwich. And we know that's for a fact. But I mean, my objection is to parking. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. And please, remind me where you live. What's your address?
Across the street, 166.
166
Yeah.
President. Okay.
Mr. Nelson, is your parking spot in front of your house?
Yeah.
Is it marked as handicap space?
No, it's not
Yeah.
parking handicap because I never had no problem with people parking in front of my house. I've never, all the years I've been there, I've never seen nobody parking there. You know, then it's only a one side you can park on that street. And that little short block. And there's 6 or 7 houses in that block, but only 3 or 4 parking spots.
Thank you.
You know, I mean, be fair about it. You know, get well if you got a sandwich shop there. I don't care where you may be going from. And you see a place to sell salmon, you gonna stop and run in and get a salmon.
You got no driveway to your house.
Yeah, people park in my driveway, in the front of my driveway. And I asked several of them, I said, you think that's the horse in the yard?
Do you use your drive, do you drive yourself?
Yes, I
Okay,
drive.
do you try to use your driveway? much
I
as you can?
drive, I have to go in my driveway when somebody block up my drive, and I might not block the driveway, and someone park in the front of the house. I got to go in my driveway. I've seen instances where people have to park in the front of the house and they block my driveway all at the same time.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Yes, sir. Please come on up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stanley Nelson. I'm Mr. Albert's son. And just like he said, these are the ongoing issues that we have in parking due to the fact that you can't park on the other side of the street. So you're looking at from Bogart to the crosstown. We can put up handicap signs, but like I said, anyone that has a handicap can park there. So, I mean, we don't know how long they're gonna be there. We'll come back home, somebody's in the space. And with him being, I have to take the lower trail because of him being at his age, he needs someplace to park. So, I find a place to park. This has been an ongoing issue and, you know, sandwich shop sounds fine. I don't know how many employees that'll be there, but they all need a place to park. I guess they can go on, suggestions is, I guess they can go on Bogart to park. I don't know. I have no idea. But please consider all of these factors when you make your decision. You know, it's been tough over the years. It's been tough battling people about the spaces. So please consider what we're going through. over there in the area that we live in. Okay, I don't wanna have to park down there on Kennedy and President Street, walk all the way back down to my house. I don't think that's fair either for him or me. I'm handicapped myself. So,
Mr. Nelson, y'all live together in the same
he
house?
lives up and I live down,
Okay.
upstairs and I live down.
So with your total family, y'all are one car or two car family?
Two cars.
Okay.
We got two vehicles. Thank you for bringing that up. We have two vehicles. I have a big truck on. And, like I said, I take the lower road for him so that way he can go into the house and do whatever he needs to do. Or park around the corner or whatever I need to do. Do I feel like I should have to park around the corner? Sometimes I do. But, I don't like it. You know.
Do y'all have a one car driveway or a two vehicle driveway?
We got one. We have one, because my vehicle is so big.
It can't squeeze in.
You know, I
Too
mean,
wide.
it's tight. Yeah, it's tight.
Yeah.
Very tight. So that would be nice. We don't have that, unfortunately. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. We appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Nelson?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a reminder, we did
Sure.
have a lady that spoke when this was last on the agenda.
Yes.
We did try to reach her, the phone number that she gave us to let her know that this meeting was occurring because we had promised that we would do that.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the number we were given, we were not able to reach her. I don't think we got the right number. However, for the record, for the public, and for the board, she did make comments on the record last time. Those are still a part of the record because of the item being deferred. So to the extent that you all remember those exact comments, her concerns are a part of the record and would transfer to this item. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Summerfield. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition? All right, seeing no one else in opposition, Mr. Pegg will hear from you once again.
You know, I'm kind of sorry that my neighbors don't want me to improve the building because of parking when they all have parking. Now, I will try to make sure that my employees park further down and not in that block. It's a very short block. Most of the time you park on Bogart when I've been there or in front of the vacant lot on the corner. There's only one house across the street that's lived in. There are the other two neighbors beside me, but again, that's in the turn.
And where do you think people would park generally if they can't park on the street there? Is there other parking anywhere close?
So because the church is here, generally is very limited times where, except for during church services, where you'll find that there's no parking on the street. And it's parking in front of all these, because none of these have a driveway.
Does that church have a parking lot?
It does not, and that's why we were going to not be operating during church services, during church time.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Peck?
And I did just look on Google Street View. And this is quite a wide driveway. And it looks like they put a partition up kind of part of the way where it has another fence where they kind of tried to make them a bigger backyard. But it does appear that they all had two-car parking, the residents that live in that block.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you, sir. All right, any questions for city? Ashby?
Do either of you have any idea what the process is for trying to designate a public street parking spot as a handicap spot?
So Ms. Ashby's done that research. I believe we've sent a letter with the information to Mr. Nelson so that they can continue to work with that. I think we also provided some information to reach out to Councilman Gregory, who's the district. So, and again, it would be to designate a spot, as Mr. Nelson here kind of alluded to, as a disabled spot. It doesn't assign it to any individual because these are all on-street parking, so they don't belong to any individual. They belong to essentially all of us. But yes, we have supplied that information. There's a process you have to go through with TNT, through transportation, traffic and transportation in order to do that. You kind of have to make application for it. But we have
In the
sent that
city's
information along.
view, is in Nelson's driveway a two-vehicle driveway?
We have not done that evaluation, so I could not say that off the here. We'll be happy to look at it, but yeah, I don't have the access to GIS to try to measure it off of aerials or anything.
Let me say something about that. Can I say something about that?
Sure, go ahead. You don't have to walk all the way up if you don't need to. I can hear you from back there.
That driveway, when the flooding was, we had flooding, water would come up about 3.5 feet. It would almost get into our vehicles. We notice now that we don't have any flooding. The water hasn't come up that high in quite a while now. So we would have to squeeze our vehicles. My father would go in the back first because his vehicle is smaller, and I would get right behind him. There's not that much space where I can close that gate. So nothing else can get in there. It has caused damage not only to his vehicle, but to mine also. In front end and stuff, rusted out. So those are ongoing issues. I'd like to thank them for from going too early, but the water doesn't come up at that anymore. We're grateful about that. But that was a big problem for many years. I'm 66 since I was a kid. So
Mr. Nelson, do you park on the street?
sometimes I do park on the street in front of the house that's now vacant. If I can get there. There's other people who park there. I can park on the street, yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nelson.
I got something else if I can. You know, 5 days a week, from 7 to 5 o'clock, people come from all different parts of this county, in Berkeley County, and park going to work. And from 7 o'clock in the morning, you can't even park on Bogart Street because of the cars. I leave sometime to go to the doctor for some kind of test, and when I get back, I got to pull in the driveway. That shouldn't be. You know, in other words, be honest with you, look like to me. Regardless of what we got to do, y'all gonna open this place. That's how it looks to me. And I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. All right, further discussion.
How many spaces are on the street?
That's a good question. Ms. Ashby, how many parking spots are on the street available to the public?
There are only 3 spaces on the street.
3 spaces on that block?
Yeah, it looks like that. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, none of the spaces are designated, but
Have someone that drives a car, and in 166, there are 2 people that drive a car.
yeah, it looks about 3.
And they fight with the people who park from MUSC, who don't want to pay for parking. They can park down in that area.
And it's residential parking, 2 hours?
It's not a residential parking district, so it is just on-street parking.
166 y'all's house. How many resident, y'all, is it just 2? It's upstairs and downstairs, or the 3 residences in there?
Yeah, but it has a 3rd apartment as well.
That's a third
No
apartment.
one's in it right now.
Yes, they have 3 residences. Just 1
Yeah,
residence.
you don't know. Man, out. You need to ask more questions if you're trying to figure it out or not. It may not be.
Right.
You got 2 vehicles in a 2-vehicle driveway.
Or it could be more than that in the driveway.
I guess, I don't know how many it holds, but it sounds like it holds 2.
Well, we have the city supporting the application. We have a building that has, Ms. Ashby, is there any potential use for this building whatsoever under the ordinance when it doesn't have parking, or is it going to have to sit there and just become,
Every use would require parking.
Yes.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Goodman. Yeah.
if that's your question, there is no use in our use table
No.
that does not have a parking requirement, whether it's a community center, whether it's some aspect of a house of worship, whether it's any active parking
okay,
requirement.
so even, whatever it might be used for, the city would still require some kind of a special exception in order to.
Yes, sir.
And the fact that the building has been vacant for 3 years or longer, we are unable to grandfather parking based on what would have been a previous use.
Commercial use previously.
Right.
The laundromat.
There was also 2 feet of water in that building. This, the drop school we have, so like 13.
All right, further discussion? Anybody have any thoughts on the balancing of these interests?
Well, to me, I mean, it seems like the use is not very intensive, which is good. The property owner has mentioned that they're not even gonna open during church services because of the parking issue and the church not having parking. I hope the owner, Mr. Nelson, will apply for the handicap spot. I think that seems like that would offer some relief as far as the space right directly in front of their house. I don't know, it's kind of what I'm thinking.
Question about the hours, there's no restriction on hours of operation?
Not per the zone district, Mr. Goodman.
But we could
But
place
we could,
restrictions.
we could. Place restrictions.
Because I think the application, when we look at the application, it kind of showed some hours of operation in there that it seemed like maybe there was a typo on that. Page 2 of 2 says the owner will be opening a sandwich shop and operating from 10 a.m. to 12 a.m.
I think that was the initial application, I had to go back and correct it. The zoning says if you're within 200 feet of residential property, can be open past. So the zoning allows those 12. There might be some nights that if you want to be able to run, I mean, it's takeout. I mean, just like a Chinese place, that's their livelihood. You're restricting the hours with damage.
Okay. We're gonna, if we need further clarification or have questions, we'll ask, but we won't make this a free for all right now. So. Thoughts?
I have a motion,
All right, great.
trying to move this along.
Yeah,
I move approval on the condition that Mr. Pay agree to support any application that Nelson's make for the spot to be designated handicap and that his employees not park on that block of President Street.
all right. So we got a motion to approve the special exception on the 2 conditions. Number 1, that the owner applicant support any application for the Nelsons to designate a handicap spot in front of their property at 166 President Street. And furthermore, that
his employees do
Condition
not
number
park
2.
on that block of
The
President.
employees will not park on that block of President Street.
That's something
Yep.
before we go further. I mean, would it make any sense to place a condition on so Mr. Page has said 12 AM because of delivery of food, but could we place a condition on takeout? Does that make sense of people actually walking in for hours? Like, as he mentioned 10 or 9 to 10 PM, but the application says 10 AM to 12 AM.
Right, so the distinction between would be, you can't,
I mean, he made the distinction of if it's open until 12 AM, then he would want to do that, I believe was what he was saying because of,
For people would come in and pick them up. And some people don't want to wait for delivery. I drive to Dallas Santos and pick up my pizza instead of having them deliver it, so it's hot.
yeah,
And potentially at 12 AM, all of those parking.
so, yeah, we're
spots are
getting,
taken
real-
out.
we're getting sort of sticky in terms
Yeah, I
of
know.
enforcement.
I mean, it might not even make a difference, I just didn't know since he just mentioned that, and we were talking about the hours of operation.
Aren't they gonna take care of themselves? He'll adjust his hours by how much business he's able to get, not get later or earlier. I mean, it seems like how businesses work to me.
Sure, but then, question is also, he's in the middle of a residential area.
But if my point is, if all the parking is taken as of 10 at night
Yeah,
and people who are trying to pick up using a vehicle, even an Uber or whatnot, can't find a place to park, pick up. I mean, that's gonna work itself out. Uber's gonna say we can't get in there after 8 at night, 10 at night or whatever.
all right, so we've got a motion pending. Mr. Goodwin, you've been quiet. Any comments or thoughts you might have?
Only thought I have is, the time of operation.
Mm-hmm.
10 o'clock is not late enough for you?
I don't want to be limited. I mean, I think I deserve to be able to have the same thing that other businesses have in the area. I may, like, the gentleman said, I may find that only 3 days a week is the amount of time that my business needs to be open because, sometimes they don't have enough staff or, I don't know yet. I mean, I'm not gotten that far into it, but, I've been willing to support their application. I've already supported it with any put in their, handicap spot. I definitely want them to be able to park close to their house.
Aren't you the one that mentioned that the hours would be 9 to 10 PM?
I told you I'd have to look back at the application. I didn't quite remember. I think we're probably gonna be open until 10.
Okay,
We did the hours based on what the zoning was, based on finding out what kind of operation winds up working out in that space.
Well, it's good when I sort of share your concerns about the hours, especially in a residential neighborhood, and I'd support a condition to close at 10 PM. We're talking about a special exception, which requires that we not impact neighboring properties in a negative way, and so, I would certainly be open to that idea. So,
Somebody wants to
I don't
move,
know
I'll
if it's a
accept the
motion.
amendment to my motion.
okay, all right, so Mr. Morrison's gonna amend his motion to place the third condition, operating hours closing at 10 PM. Is there a second? Is there a second on that motion? All right, Mr. Grass, seconds. The motion, and we're ready to vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. The motion passes. The special exception is granted for 165 President Street under the following conditions. Number one, that the owner applicant will support any application or effort for the Nelsons at 166 President Street to place a handicap designated spot in front of their home. Number two, that none of the employees for the business to be operated at 165 President Street will park on that block. Number three, that the business hours will close at 10 p.m. Every night of the week. So those are the three conditions. Special exception is approved. Thank you. All right. The next item on our agenda is A3, 9 Charlton Drive, South Windermere, Council District 11, TMS number 421-05-00-064, zoned District SR1, requesting a special exception under Section 54-110 to allow a garage expansion to be enlarged horizontally, stairs, and to extend vertically, second story studio bathroom closet stairs that extends a non-conforming 2-foot 11-inch east side setback and 4-foot 5-inch rear setback. 9 feet and 25 feet are required. The owner is Hunter Mitchell. The applicant is Robbie Marty, Summerfield.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, so this item is to rehabilitate on this property a garage that's in the back of the property. You can see it here on Carlton Drive. The zoning is SR1. The proposal will basically continue to perpetuate existing non-conforming status, which is why this is a special exception. The expansion, the horizontal expansion is into the property, so not further exacerbating any kind of non-conformity. And then obviously the second story that they would be proposing to add to this garage. Here are some photos that show you the existing condition of the house with the garage in the far back corner. Take note of the tree that you can see there adjacent. That will come up in a moment when we talk about recommended condition of approval. The existing garage is there. You can see here on the plan where the tree is. There is, and again, hopefully you can see on this view, in the proposal, there would be adding a staircase here that is very close to the tree, which is why we have the condition that we're proposing that we've spoken with the applicant and the representative about. Again, just kind of a floor plan there so you can see what's going on. And then the new, it says first floor plan, but that's actually the upstairs. And you can see the garage still on the ground floor. And elevation shift there. Again, this is all the way at the back of that property. Some additional elevations. They do have support from their neighbors for the proposed remodel. So with this, staff is recommending for approval of the special exception with a proposed condition that the vertical addition will require the pruning of the tree, which should be done by a certified arborist. The helical pier construction be installed as to minimize any excavation or soil disturbance, and they should install a grade beam. Details for these specific changes should be submitted and reviewed by planning staff prior to approval of the building plans. And with that, staff is recommending approval.
All right, thank you, Mr. Summerfield. Do we have anybody here in attendance this evening who is opposed to the application for 9 Carlton Drive? Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Ms. Marty, anything you'd like to say?
No, we spoke with the city about the condition and we're fine with it.
Okay, y'all are good with the conditions, so any questions? No. Ms. Grass moves to approve.
With the
Is there a
condition.
second?
Yep. I just said with the condition. Move for
Yes, of
approval
course, with the
conditions,
condition. Move for approval with the condition. Is there a second? All right, Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception for 9 Charleston Drive is granted with the condition that will be appended to the decision. And I'm thankful for you typing it out, so we can put it right in there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on our agenda, B, new applicant, we're not on B1, but we are on B, new applications. B2, 6 F Street, West Side, Council District 4, TMS number 463-16-03-037. Zone DR1, requesting a special exception under section 54-501 to allow construction of a single-family dwelling on a lot of insufficient size. Lot area is 2,727 square feet, 4,000 square feet are required. The owner is Jay Heinrichs. The applicant is Troy A. Yo. Mr. Summerfield.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. So this is the lot here on F Street in question. It backs up to the crosstown right of way. As with many of the lots in this area, the lot is not meeting the DR1 development requirement for lot size. However, the applicant is proposing a single-family structure on this home or on this lot that is in conformance with all our other development standards. Lot area is again going to be a tough one because it's just a substandard lot for the zoning in an area that is significantly built up. Here are some elevations as well, so you can see again it's a relatively modest profile on this home. See the square footage, see the proposed lot coverage that would be for this. Because the applicant has been able to propose this development with only this somewhat minimal concern with the lot area, staff is recommending approval of the special exception.
All right, thank you, Mr. Summerfield. Is there anybody here tonight who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 6 F Street? Speak in opposition. Seeing none, do we have the owner or applicant here?
Yes, sir.
All right, is there anything you'd like to say to the board?
Yes, sir.
All right, any questions for the city? Any questions for the owner applicant?
Approval.
All right, Mr. Morrison moves to approve. I saw Mr. Bennett's hand first, seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the special exception for 6 F Street is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda, the 330 South Battery Street, Charlestown, Council District 8, TMS number 457-16-02-057 zone SR3, requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a 1-story addition that enlarges a non-conforming residential unit. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a 1-story addition kitchen expansion that extends a non-conforming 9.7-foot west side setback, 12 feet are required. The owners are Jim and Jan Shore. The applicant is Brittany Smith, Metters Inc. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so here's the property on South Battery Street that you can see in the aerial. This is in the SR3 zoning district. It's a very long, narrow lot. The proposed additions and changes do not exacerbate the existing nonconformity as it relates to the side setback. As well as the proposed addition will not intensify activities conducted at this on this property. As a result, staff is recommending approval. You can see the proposed site plan here. can see some of the renovation plans where they're proposing the additional space. Here as well. These are very technical drawings versus more artistic drawings, so hopefully everyone can tell the difference there as I kind of scroll through them. Would note, as you read into the record, this is a one-story change. When the agenda was published, we misinterpreted something on the drawing, so I think we published it as 3 stories because the change is less intense than what was published. There's no issue with the posting, I would note for the record. And with that, staff is recommending approval of these special exceptions.
All right, thank you, Robert. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 30 South Battery? You're here in opposition, 30 South Battery. All right, seeing none, do we have the owner or applicant here? All right, anything you'd like to say to the board this evening?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any questions for the city? Any questions for the owner applicant? Ready to vote.
Make a motion to approve.
All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bennett seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception for 30 South Battery Street is granted. All right, the next item on the agenda is B4, 34 Pinckney Street, Ansonboro, Council District 8. PMS number 458-05-01-095, Zone CT. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a change to an existing detached non-conforming building, storage shed, and to allow construction of a new detached 2-story building, guest cottage home office that extends a non-conforming 1-foot rear setback, 3 feet are required. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow an addition, 2nd floor bathroom that extends a non-conforming 1-foot east side setback, 3 feet are required. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow new construction of a detached 2-story addition, guest cottage home office with a 59-foot front setback, a 0.2-foot east side setback, a 0.3-foot west side setback, a 0.5-foot total side setback having a 72% lot occupancy, 70 feet, 3 feet, 9 feet, 15 feet, 35% lot occupancy limitation, and 59% existing are required. The owner is Mike Seekings. The applicant is Mike Seekings. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so as you can see here on Pinckney Street, the property is circled in blue. This is a property where it's in the CT zoning district. These proposed changes have previously been approved by the Board of Zoning Appeals. They were all originally done and approved as special exceptions. There has been a update to the interpretation of the code as it relates to specifically the lot coverage. When a requested lot coverage exceeds the non-conforming and the standard, that should come forward as a variance. So that's why the application for the variance is here. The applicant has included the variance request, and that information is available in the packet. Here you can see the site plan where the proposal is. Let's see. Hopefully you can see it a little bit better here in terms of where the new construction will be. Floor plan that shows where the existing elements that'll be demolished, and then the new proposed additions, as well as more extensively showing those updated proposal. Here you can see the elevations. You can see the elements where they're proposing to demo and then do the additions on this. More on the elevations. Again, this has previously been before the board, was approved. Staff did not receive any indications of opposition to this. Everything is still situated on this property, still situated exactly the same as it was during the previous review. The applicant just did not have an opportunity to make these changes and now has to come back before the board to get those requests renewed.
And the city.
Is recommending approval on
Thank you.
these items.
Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
All right, so thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody here who is in opposition to the application for 34 Pinckney Street? Okay, we do have one in opposition, so Mr. Seekings, would you like to address the board?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Mike Seekings. I am the owner and the applicant of this. First and foremost, thank you all so much for your service. This is a property I've owned for about 30 years. I've lived in it for more than half of that time. It's been rented for the last, well, let's see, the one thing that's changed since this last application was the city council district. So I moved out right before then. So it's been rented for 14 years. Essentially, what this application does is allow for the same lot coverage as there today, but with a modernized addition on the back. I always say that this street and the two houses on it are, depending on which direction you go, either the first line or last line of defense of residential in Ansonboro. It is zoned for commercial transitional. I can do a lot with it. There's gonna be a hotel across the street. There's a lot of interest in it. I desperately want to keep it as a single family residence, not just for me and my family, but for the city in the future. What this will allow is for a second full bathroom and another bedroom. What's there in the back right now is an old Lowe's shed that I didn't put in. It was there, put in by the previous owner, and it is in perfect condition. That says something about Lowe's. So really what we're doing is replacing that with a 2-story addition and connecting it to the house. I wasn't aware that there was some opposition to the neighborhood. I talked to the neighborhood at the last meeting, Steve Hansen, who is the BZA coordinator for Ansonboro, seemed to think there was no problem with it. So I'm happy to answer any questions this board has about it. Pending this approval, we'll go to the BAR and then sort of see how it all goes.
Thank you, Mr. Seekings.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions, Mike?
I was just generally curious, and maybe Mr. Summerfield knows the answer. When was that last approval? You might have
It
mentioned
was
it.
in 2008,
2008. Okay.
and I'm happy to answer why the work hasn't been done if you have any questions on that. If nothing else, thank you for your service, and I would ask that you approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have anybody else here in support of the application for 34? All right, seeing none, we'll hear from you, ma'am. You can please state your name and address for the record.
Christina Dodd, 42 Hazel Street. I sit on the Historic Ansonboro Neighborhood Board. I'm not in opposition to what you want to do. Mike has been fantastic for Ansonboro. He's a great representative, and we think very highly of him. That said, we were not aware of this in advance, and I think the position of the board members that I know would have appreciated having a little information up front to let us know. Informally, we've said, whoa, it seems kind of crowded. Are there going to be more people? Will there be more cars? But we have not taken a position because we have not been approached. So I'm not saying no. I just think that for the courtesy of letting us know what was coming down would have been appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Seekings, any response?
I simply will say that I talked to Steve about it at the last. Well, that's my mistake as the BZA representative, so I apologize if there was a miscommunication in how I communicated this. I did talk to him.
I get it. I understand.
And I didn't see anybody else's hand go up, but just for process, anybody else who is opposed to the, or has any comments on 34 Pinckney Street? Do you have, Mr. Seekings, is there any reason you think that you need to talk with the homeowners association or the?
I'm happy to talk to the homeowners association. I talk to them every day. I talked to Mr. Shire today, about this application. I could go in the hall and talk about it now. Again, this is something that was previously approved, and whatever the board thinks is comfortable with. I communicate with this group a lot. I represent them.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to do anything to get crossways with them. I don't believe this does, but.
Well, what would you prefer, honestly, because we can, Go ahead.
Was there any public posting of this notice?
Yes, sir. It was posted.
Yes, we met all of the requirements for posting. We posted the property. There was the notice of this item in the newspaper, and then obviously on the city's website for the notice for this meeting.
And on our website, under public comments, the day before any meeting, BZA-Z meeting, there is that opportunity to post comments, whether you're in support or non-support. And then, of course, staff is always available for emails being sent to them.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion, questions for the applicant, questions for Hannah, questions for the city?
Move approval.
Morrison moves to approve. Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception and the variance for 34 Pinckney are granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is B5 to the Council Street, Charlestown, Council District 8, TMS number 457-11-04-028, zone DR1. Requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a change to a non-conforming multifamily use by allowing an existing deck on the second floor to be enclosed for a new bedroom suite that enlarges the second floor residential unit on a property with 3 non-conforming residential units. The owner is Charleston Properties Trad LLC. The applicant is In a Bench Construction LLC. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so the property here is at Council and Trad Street, almost to the corner of Council and Trad Street. It is in the DR1 zoning district. Because of that zoning designation, the property is non-conforming as it relates to the number of units and the size of the units. So per our current ordinance, although I think we're going to have some conversations about changing the requirement that just a modification within a unit has to come back for the special exception. This proposed request is a modification within the existing confines of the nonconformity. It's not creating any additional unit. It's reconfiguring the space and adding additional living area to the existing unit by the enclosure. And so for this reason, staff is recommending approval of the special exception. Here you can see on the drawings, the existing floor plan on the top floor, the existing floor plan on the bottom floor. You see nothing changes there. And then on the second floor, you can see they have the existing porch noted on the top. And now that becomes a bedroom, and the bedroom becomes a part of a bathroom. And here you can see where, again, the existing porch is, that would be enclosed in the proposed elevation. And here's some more on that, that elevation. They do have letters of support for this proposal from 1 Council Street and 161 Trad. And with that, staff is recommending approval of the special exception.
All right, thank you, Robert. Anybody here in opposition to the application for 2B Council Street? All right, see no one in opposition. Do we have the owner applicant? See, I saw a little finger go up. All right. Anything you'd like to address with the board?
No, everything's pretty good.
Okay. All right. Any questions?
Do we need to, just for the record, mention all the letters of opposition?
I'll be honest, I didn't count them, so I don't know what you're talking about comments that public submitted online. Do you know what that number was? Sorry, that's important because I did mention the letters of approval that we did get.
Do you have any actual photographs of it, the current? Or is it just the architectural drawings?
I think we just have architectural. I don't think we have. No, we do not have in the presentation. I can look it up on my phone and share it with you if you'd like.
You can kind of see the 3D view aerial.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite here.
I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but it seems like those letters of opposition were more concerned about, maybe the use changing and adding more, like, more of an impact on parking. I mean, so I'm assuming that this actually would not do that.
No, so. Hope we can see here on that, so. I'm sorry, I need a new prescription of my glasses, so I'm trying to read how they labeled it. So right now, hopefully you can see on this floor plan. So right now, the second bedroom over here is this space right up here. Under their proposed remodel, and obviously the owners are here, so they can correct me if I say something inaccurate. But under the proposal, the new enclosed space where it's currently a balcony porch would become the bedroom, and the existing bedroom would become a bathroom. So they're increasing their living space. They're not exacerbating the intensity of the use by adding additional bedrooms or additional units or anything like that, which is why staff was supportive.
Thank you for explaining that.
And then I also just make a clarification as to the public comments. We received 2 letters in support. And on the public comment, we only received 1 that represented the concerns of other neighbors.
Okay.
So there were really only 3 letters, 2 in support, 1 that was speaking on behalf of some concerns of other residents.
I
Thank
know
you.
that they
Those-
have
and those
listed their
concerns-
names at the bottom. I'm
Right.
sorry.
I was just gonna say, and those concerns were addressed in a subsequent application or revisions to the application.
I spoke to one of the residents to explain the application, and one of the main questions was there going to be another bedroom?
Mhm.
And there's not an additional bedroom.
Right.
It's a better bedroom in this unit. That's 3 bedrooms will remain 3 bedrooms. So that clarification was made to that individual.
Good, thank you for explaining that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
One last question. The 2 letters in support, one was 1 Council Street, is that directly across the street? And then
Yes.
the other affected neighbor, Pratt Street address.
Trash Street, yes, sir.
Is that the adjacent property, 161, or is that somewhere? You may not know that off.
Yeah, we can tell you.
Yeah.
161 is actually to the rear on Trad,
Yeah,
Okay,
and then, of course, council is across the
yeah,
street.
so 161 is right
yeah,
here,
I see it.
and then
I see
1
it.
is. Oh, yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, so we did, if there was, some additional concern based on, the neighbors, the third letter that we did receive, or third, comment that we did receive, staff was going to recommend that there be a zoning, and final inspection before, the building department issues,
they were gonna get out of
construction
that room.
completion, just to verify that everything is as the floor plans that you are reviewing.
Okay.
And this will go to the VAR, I assume.
Yes.
All right. Any other comments or questions, or are we ready for a motion?
I think I'm ready to make a motion, but I'm curious if the inspection requirement is a condition of the proposed condition by the city, or if that's something that is already just part of the process.
We haven't made it a condition, but in light of the comments that were received, it was a condition we were willing to put out there for consideration by the board if they wanted it.
Okay, and is that a condition that is suitable for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no problem.
Then I will make a motion for approval with a condition as recommended by the city that the product will be inspected to match, for confirmation that it matches the drawings as presented.
That there'll be a zoning inspection prior to final CFC by the building department.
Better said. Thank you.
All right, the motion has been made. It's been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. The special exception for 2B Council Street is approved with the condition that there'll be a final zoning inspection to confirm built to plan, prior to CO being issued. Fair enough?
Mr. Tibbles, who second the motion, please? I miss, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Next item on our agenda. B6, 28 Hassel Street, Anselsboro. Council District 8, PMS number 458-0501-175, zoned LB, requesting a special exception under 54-511 to allow 1,167 square feet of classroom space without providing the required parking space. 12 spaces are required. The owner is 28 Pitt LLC. The applicant is Impress Dental Courses LLC. Amanda Say, CO David Say, Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so this property is at the corner of Hansel Street and East Bay Street. As you can see here on the aerial. Hazel Street, did I say right?
Hazel.
Hazel, I'm sorry. I threw an N in there, didn't I?
Yeah, it got worse than the hassle.
Sometimes letters just appear and I apologize for that. So this is zone LB. As mentioned, it's at the corner of East Bay and Hazel Street. I don't know why I threw extra letters in there. This special exception is related to the off-street parking requirements for the property. As you can see, this is again an existing facility. There is limited parking available for its re-tenanting. And the proposed use as a classroom, the applicants have indicated that they do not run these classes very often. They already conduct these classes in downtown and they work with a couple hotels presently using just ballroom or meeting space. They have done extensive outreach on verifying parking locations. They are willing, and I thought we had a condition for it, but we don't. They've indicated to us that they are willing to have a condition to make it clear that none of their participants will park within the neighborhood. This is again in an area where there's plenty of public parking available on East Bay. And as well as in easy walking distance to where they would do these classes. They do not, again, do these classes on a regular basis. And from the Historic Anselsboro Neighborhood Association, we did get a letter of approval for this. Again, it wanted to be very clear that the guests, staff, clients, and guests of Hansel Street shall not park in the residential parking spaces on Hazel, and I don't know why I keep seeing an N and throwing an N in there. Apologize for that. And so staff would recommend approval of this special exception with that condition.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Summerfield. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak in opposition to the application for 28 Hazel Street? All right, we got quite a few. So we will hear from the owner applicant first.
Good evening. My name is David C. I'm the realtor and broker in charge of the brokerage. I represent the two principals here, Dr. Amanda C., who's also a related party to my wife, and Dr. Domino Torantanio. They run a course called Impress. I'm sure you had a chance to read all the supplement information. Really neat property for our use, given that I feel it checks the box for limited business, not only because of our hours of operation are very limited, but we have a zero parking requirement. It is very rare that anybody that even travels into Charleston to come to this course even rents an automobile. We've currently been in the Renaissance Hotel. Previous to this, we were over in the Grand Bohemian, always using their parking. Their parking is actually close enough to this property to walk and continue to use that. But on top of that, I found in the parking survey that we've provided even more parking for you. Sounds like to me that there may have been a history of people seeking special exceptions that unfortunately haven't kept their word and honored the neighborhood's residential parking places. Completely get that. I live in a beach community and people always eat up my parking. But at the same time, I have made every effort here with the owners who are willing to do this to do our very best to not try to park in that. And one quick question, is there a time requirement? I should have asked that before I start. Is there?
Well, technically there is, but we'll give you've got several people that wish to speak in opposition, so.
So the main thing I just wanted to share with you from a sincerity of a zero parking use is we don't even have a full-time employee. We have a part-time employee. And when that part-time employee works in the courses, which are run right now 8 times a year on 2 days a weekend, right? So really 16 days a year. Even if we decided to grow the course, the max would be 40 days a year. And the difficult part of hotels is you're setting them up and breaking down the hotel conference space. When we don't even have to do the setup once we're established, there'll be even less time for people to traverse the area in cars. And most of the doctors actually stay in our personal residence with us when they come into town. So they carpool downtown in one car, dropped off quickly. That person parks and walks back to this proposed property. The reason why I think it fits really well is we also have a 0 lot line property. And because it's a 0 lot line property, there is no ability to add parking on the physical property. When we surveyed to buy parking, we technically would be required to go find 12 paid spaces. As you know, it's very hard to find that. We don't mind investing in the parking with our private pay and leaving the car, so we won't even do it. We have made some suggestions, and I'd like to thank the Hannah board for really communicating well with us and for coaching us, because we've never made this type of application before. If I would have known any better, I would have thought this is a by right entitlement, but thankfully I learned it was requiring a special exception. The main thing that I think can really help us is this property has been vacant for quite a while. And unfortunately, it does have a good amount of deferred maintenance. It is not professionally set up in a horizontal property regime. As a real estate professional myself, I will write that with the upstairs apartment owner who I've spoken with. And we had a lovely meeting about trying to get the regime back on track. And we also know that our participants, they're not even fresh dentists right out of school. These are established dentists, extremely professional. They come to these courses because they want to grow and get better. And so they have the desire to do that. Even if we did need to temporarily stop for a moment, we have a property carrying tag on East Bay right in front of 167, which of course we would not abuse those privileges under the changing P-tag laws. We did make the application on the 13th of September. We reached out to the Hannah board prior to our application, and we have received only one negative comment via email, which I have tried to address to the very best of my ability. So that's what I'd just like to offer with you tonight. And we even had suggested that we could provide our license tags of all our employees. I know no one wants to enforce that. I would even be willing to reach out to the chief of police and talk to him about increasing enforcement in that area so that we can prove it. We'll put our money where our mouth is. And we could even, I guess that's really all I have to say to you tonight, but I'm happy to let everyone speak and then come back and have some further comments. And you're also welcome to speak to the doctors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. C. So do we have others who wish to speak in support of the application for 28 Hazel? Yes, sir.
No way. Edward Hamilton, live in Mount Pleasant. The owner is of 28 LLC. LLC is lives out of state, and just wanted to convey that he's in full support of this, and also believes this is a very unique sort of business that will hopefully be compliant with all the needs of the community and the board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody else who wishes to speak in support of the application for 28 Hazel? All right, seeing none, now we have folks in opposition to the application. So decide who's going to come up and come on up and state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, and thanks for letting me speak. My name is Jackie Meany, and I live at 34 Hazel Street. I'm speaking on my behalf and some of my neighbors who are here and will speak as well, and some who were not able to come. We have 28 and a half, 35 Hazel, 283 East Bay, and others who live at 31, 33, 38, and 42, who are in opposition of this right now because well, let me just finish. The request by 28 Hazel for an exception variance will have the most impact on us because we're in that block. We only learned about this request last week when the notice went up at the building, and I happened to notice it when I was walking the dogs. The applicants never reached out to us prior to that notice being put up, explaining to us why they were requesting the variance until they learned that we had concerns about it. They did approach the by the board, and they failed to let those of us most impacted know about this request. The regulation was put into place to protect neighborhoods like ours, where parking or lack thereof has become a big problem. In the last year, I had caregivers for my husband, who was very ill, 24 hours a day. I had to leave my driveway available for them to have a place to park so they didn't have to roam around the park somewhere. It was a nightmare because we have employees from restaurants, hotels, other businesses who park there during the day with impunity. We have at night people parking there who are going out for a night on the town. Parking enforcement able to find enough people who want to do that. We buy our permits, we buy our guest passes for friends who visit and for service people. And Hazel Street has parking spaces only on one side of the street. And I think currently, right now, the other lanes of traffic are being used as a NASCAR training track. I respectfully request that you deny, postpone, defer this application until we as a neighborhood have had an opportunity to look into ways to protect ourselves and to hear from the applicant. And they do hope that they will be able to expand the number of classes, invite other doctors to teach there, meaning that there will be, and I mean, how do you guarantee that nobody will park on the street? Charleston Place tells all of their employees, do not park on Hazel Street. I can tell you, they pull up in the morning, they get out, they walk up to Charleston Place, and they laugh when we say, you know, you can't do that. We don't ever get a ticket. And they truly, they don't pay for their parking. We do. We neighborhood. You can't just say, oh, I'll tell them that they can't park. The fact of the matter is people do. It happens all we've seen people get out of their cars, go to East Bay, take a left. They work at one of the restaurants there and they're there all day. We leave notes on the car saying that we're going to call parking enforcement. Yeah, we take pictures of the license plates. They're there all the time. They don't pay a bit of attention. It would all the time, and it's not pleasant, I gotta tell you. And for you to say simply, oh, we'll tell them they can't park there. So far, that hasn't worked. I hope that you, in the very least, will defer this until we've had an opportunity to let them know what our concerns are and how important it is for us that we get something worked out. I know they can't guarantee it, but that's 12 spaces. And it's like you're just giving up. I will consider what I've said and know that we were very disappointed that nobody talked to us about it.
Y'all have been to city council to give this talk to city council about the parking problems on your street?
Have I done that yet? I wish it would work. I mean, I don't know.
You've been here, you expect this to work? Why wouldn't you try that if it sounds
Well,
like
the trucks.
I mean, I think you give a good talk. I think you should go to city council. What you've told us about is an enforcement problem.
It is. I mean, I know that they mean well and they will tell their employees, but the language that I read is most of the people, not all. And, right now they only have a half an employee. Well, they're also planning to expand and we'll have more employees. Now, where is that?
Enforcement on your street.
If there were, it would be awesome.
Yeah, because this is a building that fills the entire lot size, and because of its square footage, it has a 12 space. We understand all this.
I do, but I also do know that was put into effect to protect neighborhoods like ours. Anson Borough is getting squeezed from every side. There are more hotel rooms that are a block away. And every time you look around, there's another 50-room boutique hotel that's being built. God forbid that big parking lot between the hotel and the barns ever has a hotel put on it. We deal with the trucks. The trucks don't obey the signs. I mean, it's becoming increasingly difficult to have a quality of life in our neighborhood. All I'm asking is that you give us some consideration and consider the fact that nobody talked to us before. Anyway, so I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition to the application of 28 Hazel? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is J.D. Sullivan. I own the property at 27 Hazel Street, which is directly across the street. Also representing the lady who's also here, but will save time by not having so many people. 8.5. They live upstairs. They have no parking. There is no parking space for them. At 27 Hazel, which happens to be a kitchen house for 283 East Bay, which I also own, but it also has no parking. So the only parking available is on Hazel Street. And I have to remind you of where it's located. It's directly across from Harris Teeter, around the corner from 167 Raw, down the street from Charleston Place, 2 blocks off of Market Street. So I can't express enough the amount of people who are parking there illegally. And as much as we'd like to talk about enforcement, that's not going to necessarily stop it. What's happening is people are parking there, as Jackie mentioned, with there every day. We have service people, plumbers, electricians, all who need to access that property. All of us are welcoming in Ansonboro, and we also know that they're well-intentioned. So we want to make sure that we want somebody to be successful there. But if you look at the layout of that office space, it's use it 16 times, 40 times. Any successful business is going to want to expand their hours, their people. So there is no guarantee that they're not going to have somebody parking there. I will mention that in the business there before made a deal with Acquisitions, which is the furniture store right on East Bay. And they have a huge parking lot in the back. And that's what Jackie's worried about, the spots available behind Acquisitions. And there's not more than 3 or 4 that are ever taken at any given time. He made a deal or leased or rented spaces from Acquisitions before, because he didn't want to impede on the neighbors. So that was something we said, well, maybe that's what they should consider, because there's no way that they can guarantee they can talk about all these people are professional people. I guarantee you professional people park illegally every day. Because you're professional doesn't mean you don't park illegally. So we only ask that this be considered. Also, we're the closest Union Pier. We're the closest neighborhood and the closest street. So we're also looking at the future of what's going to be coming down our street every day, who's going to be parking there and why. So we ask, for me, I would say that unless there's certain requirements for them on parking, again, they can tell them not to park there. We promise, it's a pinky promise. You can say whatever you like, but there is no guarantee. So we ask that you deny or they make certain exceptions that would be acceptable to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Anybody else who wishes to speak in opposition to the application of 28 Hazel? Yes, ma'am.
Christina Dodd, speaking on behalf of a homeowner at 42 Hazel Street. Ideally, it does look like a good fit. As far as parking, it's a terrible fit. This property comes with a requirement of 12 spaces, and they should provide them in deference to the neighborhood. As JD just mentioned, Acquisition rents out spaces. So I feel that this company should rent spaces, show that they have spaces available for their people, and then I don't think the neighborhood would have this as an issue anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dodd. Anybody else has an opinion on the application of 28 Hazel? Going once, going twice. All right, we get a rebuttal from Mr. C.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the opportunity for the rebuttal. 100% really respect and appreciate everybody's opportunity to comment on that. I think I've been very open, and I feel like I need to clarify a few comments that were made that I don't believe were 100% true. I have reached out to the Hannah Board. I don't know how all the houses work. I don't know if they consider themselves to be encompassed under the Hannah Board. Aside from door-to-door knocking, I don't know the solicitation laws in that area. I don't know how I could have reached out more diligently and folks, to be fair. And again, I just want to reflect that in the past, I can't control the past. You know, in the past, when I was going to First Baptist Church School downtown and as a lifelong Charlestonian, I was raised to have honor by my parents and to keep my word. And if I say I'm not going to park, I'm not going to park. But if you want me to guarantee it, when I was told I can't guarantee it, I will guarantee it. We have had 2 Charleston doctors come to these courses in 6 years. Everyone else comes from out of town and they don't rent a car unless they bring their children. And they're off enjoying Charleston while the participants are in the classroom. They pay for parking if they stay in a hotel. They currently do that at the Renaissance Hotel. Miss Jackie, we had some nice exchanges via email, very pleasant. To be candid though, I've never met Miss Jackie in person. She does not know me. But the comment that the board did not take any action, unfortunately, I don't think that's true because you're not to park in any residential spaces, which we've said we won't. We will absolutely guarantee that. I would accept the penalty if you ever caught me on that. Again, I made some good suggestions earlier about talking to the police force. I'm sorry that there's not enough staffing in the city of Charleston for enforcement. I would even deed restrict it. So if you want to guarantee that, we'll deed restrict it through my attorney. I think that's a pretty generous offer myself. How in the world can we have these courses? Our cash flow model for this. You know what it costs to rent a hotel room in the city of Charleston? Renting a hotel room 8 times a year is a wash between buying and maintaining this property. You're worried about the port? You might want to have a real estate professional that is now in the ownership group that's going to be a good voice to make sure that the neighborhood doesn't have anybody else after us misbehave. I get it. It's just our word. We're a professional crowd. We do what we say we're going to do. But I did reach out as best I know. The only thing that I maybe could have done is to canvass door to door. But I was coached by the president of Hannah, how to best reach out to Miss Jackie, spoke to Miss Jackie. They made us not like anything there. I don't know what other user could be there with a 0 parking requirement. I just don't know what other business could come and do that. I mean, I own a real estate company, and even if my agents are supposed to be out in the field, you're still going to have 1 or 2 people in the office. But for this model, worst case, 40 days a year with 0 parking, I just don't know who else could use this property and take good care of it for us. So, Amanda, did you want to say anything, or did I cover it all?
Mr. Sim, may I ask one thing?
Please.
Sit down. What are your thoughts about available spots and acquisitions?
But there's just not any buying of parking in that general vicinity. And it makes more financial sense for me to pay $200 a day in a parking lot than to try to buy a parking space, because it's rare to even find something that you can rent for less than $250 a month downtown. And then you have to, what are you going to create a map and tell all your people where to park? It just, I mean, we could even Uber from our home to come down here and not even bring a car downtown. It would make more sense with 6 doctors coming at once. So I just think we're a very unique, good fit for the space personally.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. C.
I'm Amanda C. And I'm owner, dentist, and my partner, Dr. John Antonio. And I just wanted to say, I think from the outside looking in, it might be difficult to understand a business like ours because it is unique. I mean, I'll say this to try and be as humble as possible, but we are considered experts in our field. So most of the dentists that come to our course fly in from all over the country. We've had 2 local dentists in the 7 years that we've been operating out of the Grand Bohemian and the Renaissance Hotel. These people come in and the course fee is $5,000 a head. So yes, the business model is we have 8 to 10 courses a year. And yes, even though we plan on growing it, our pool of international educators and speakers that do this flying in, visiting our town of Charleston, I've had no local dentists want to spend that kind of money for this kind of education. So almost 100% of our participant base are coming in, and we have room blocks with the Renaissance Hotel. They know us there because we've been using them for so long, the same with Grand Bohemian. So these people don't use cars. And like David said, if they do bring a car, it's because they decide to make it a family vacation, and usually their spouse is off with the kids doing other things, visiting the beaches, doing other stuff, and then meeting them in the evenings and staying at the hotel for dinner. So it is a very unique business model that I don't think you're gonna find in any other situation. And like I said, we live in this town, we love this town, we do business in this town. And we understand the frustrations of being residents, as he said, living in the beach. We have people that park on our side all the time, but this is, I just ask you to consider what we're trying to do here. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll make this quick. My name is Adamo Tarantonio. I live in Long Island, New York currently. I don't have much different things to say than Amanda and David, but I want to reiterate and reinforce the business model thing because it is completely unique. And I know it's very hard to understand. And trust me, being from New York, I know all about illegal parking. It's probably 10 times worse than it is here, to be honest. The reality is running our courses right now 8 times a year at $5,000 a head with 40 people per course. We don't need any other days to fund what we do, to be completely honest. And Amanda's right. We teach and lecture all around the world. I just got back personally from New Zealand. These doctors fly in from everywhere. And as Amanda and David mentioned, if they have a car to rent with children, they're staying at a hotel to make it a weekend. They're parking at the hotel. There will be no one parking anywhere near this facility, including us. And I can give you my word, and I'm a man of my word, and they know me very well. I know you all don't, but it is completely unique. It's a dental education center. You're gonna see people there a tenth of the time that you think. It's not gonna be all that busy. Even if we went to 20 weekends, it's Friday, Saturday. It's not like there's people there Monday to Friday and so on and so forth. And like I said, I can guarantee the cars, we don't need them. The only reason we need cars now are to transport from the 2 public storage units we have our equipment in to bring downtown to the hotel. And once it's in our spot, it's there for good. And we'll show up and do what we have to do and honor and respect everything you ask of us. So thank you.
Thanks, sir. All right. Well, we could sort of go back and forth all night, and so we're not gonna have the time to do that. So do we have any questions for the city?
I would like to correct something.
Well, can you do it in 2 sentences?
I can.
Go ahead.
He is wrong. Hannah did not approve this. Hannah heard them, but Hannah chose not, our neighborhood association chose not to do anything. I did send an email that the chairman of the board sent specifically saying Hannah did not approve this.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
We
so
have the
you-
letter in the record.
Yeah, if she's seen the letter, I'm not sure.
We do have the letter.
Mr. Chairman, I did want to put on the record since Commissioner Morrison mentioned about enforcement. So there is one thing that is slightly different here with the enforcement because this is a zoning condition. If we put on the condition, nothing, that's a separate action from parking enforcement. So if any of the neighbors were to see and substantiate that there was an abuse of their parking spaces by the applicant, by their clients, that would go against their zoning. And so then we could actually bring this back. This is a privilege to have the special exception. It's not a right. And so if they violate the condition that you would impose on them, they can lose their right to have the special exception and meaning they could not continue to operate. So I just throw that out there because you did ask about enforcement. Enforcement, because this is a zoning matter, can be different than the issues that maybe the neighborhood has had with parking enforcement. It does require, again, to be all honest, it does require some proactivity on the part of the neighborhood to, see that the problem is, link it to the site. So it's not a, 100%, but there is that aspect of this matter from an enforcement standpoint.
Thank you,
So
Robert.
we're supposed to enforce it as neighbors? We're supposed to just walk around and enforce? That's crazy.
How many of y'all have a driveway and how many don't?
I don't
I don't.
have one driveway. Oh, right.
Okay. Thank you.
So I've heard a request from the neighbors to at least defer it. I've heard that the parking is really not an issue for this use, but that some of the neighbors think that they should at least get the parking secured, whether they use it or not. And is that a realistic possibility? Are there parking spaces nearby that could be leased or no?
It's been proven. The guy who owns it now did. At acquisitions.
The current owner of the property,
When he had a business running there, made a deal with acquisitions to rent spaces.
How many spaces would you
I think it
think
was
would
four.
be?
Yeah, because he had permanent employees.
Yeah, how many spaces in the business model they've explained in pretty much detail, how many spaces would y'all want to require them to lease?
Well, I think there's no guarantee. First of all, as a businessman, I just want to throw this out there. If it's 8 weekends or it's 40 days, I've run a business all my life, successful business, and you're always trying to get more successful. If they had an opportunity to go to 80 days, would they do it?
Well, what they're saying, sir, I think is that they're gonna tell their people who attend, there's no parking, do not bring a car.
Just like Charleston Place.
And, no, I don't think it's like Charleston Place, frankly. I don't see it that way, but I
Well,
move to
wrong.
defer, Mr. Chairman.
okay. All right, any discussion on the motion to defer to give them an opportunity to try to work this out before they come back?
We can't defer, sorry.
Hmm?
We can't defer, sir. I put that in writing to you, that I don't have the real estate contract to give deferral.
Yeah, and to that point, the current owner, and to their point, has always been sensitive to the community and have the parking spaces. We've been under contract since August and have had to delay, obviously, to meet these requirements. And, he's at a risk now of losing, a buyer. He's been very kind of keen to vet the right people for the property. And, we are running out of time.
Okay, so you're the representative of the current owner of the property?
Yes.
But nobody can buy this property except somebody who can guarantee no parking like it seems. Nobody else would have any ability to use this property, except somebody who just doesn't own a car and wants to live there. I mean, the Ansenberg guys don't want anybody who lives there to park on their street, period. And so, I mean, this is a very difficult issue.
If they had parking permits like we have parking permits, and they could ask for two, they could ask for parking permits. What they're saying is they're not even doing that.
Well,
They
they
have the
can't,
right to
there's,
get a couple.
All right, listen, we're not gonna have this degrade into everybody talking over each other, okay? No more comments unless we ask you a specific question. All right,
I just wanted to say that I'm not comfortable with, like I mentioned in an earlier meeting, putting the onus on the neighborhood residents to police the street. I mean, they might not necessarily know who is parking there or, might not know definitively that it's from this property. So I'm not really, I appreciate the condition idea, but I don't really think that's fair to the residents. Seems like they're doing a lot of that already. And it also seems like because the applicant has mentioned many times tonight that this business model is unique, and it might not be well understood by a lot of us, that it does seem like a deferral to be able to explain what this is. It might be something that the residents understand and agree with. I don't know. I don't know. I don't really understand it. So I'm just saying, just putting that out there myself, so for discussion.
and I think also to the point of how many spaces should be required, 12, but would the neighborhood would it be sufficient to say that 4 are required?
sure, and we can't
And then
make
you
those
have-
decisions. Those are the decisions that the neighbors might make. I don't know how long these parties have been in discussion with each other. I've seen a letter from the Hannah board that does appear to at least not object to the use so long as the parking is adhered to, that nobody is parking there on the street that is associated with this business. But I still sense that there's a lot of comments and objections from the neighbors close by. I understand the issue of the contract. Contract is not the board's problem. It's a contract between private entities. If it kills the sale, that's not really our fault. So we want to give the people an opportunity to try to work things out, including the owner and the buyer and the neighborhood, great. If they can work it out, great. If they can't work it out, they'll either come back for a request for a decision, or if they don't have the contract anymore, they won't come back at all. So
And just if you don't mind, mention how they would come back and how quickly they could come back for reconsideration once we've deferred.
So this would be a deferral, so they could come back. I mean, from a procedural standpoint, they could come back as early as the 5th. We haven't published that agenda, so if they told us that they wanted to be back on the 5th, we could bring them back. Obviously, that's a very narrow window for them to meet with the neighbors and maybe work out any kind of thing. But the 5th of November would be the next earliest meeting that provides some bandwidth for them to be able to connect with the neighbors.
And Mr. Chair, you mentioned, and it was in our public information, the letter from Hannah. So that is out there, the letter from Hannah that did say that they gave favorable consideration.
you can publish it if you like.
Yeah, it's actually in all the documents, but it's
Yeah, it's part of the presentation.
that's correct.
Historic Ansonboro Neighborhood Association respectfully requests that an approval, if granted, be conditioned such that staff, clients, and guests of 28 Hazel shall not park in the residential parking spaces on Hazel Street. All right, Mr. C, I saw you raise your hand. If you want to comment, I'll let you say something.
So I have followed every procedure that has been outlined with me and had multiple conversations, every follow-up question. This application was made in a timely fashion. Before the application was made, the Hannah Board was notified. I don't know who reports to the Hannah Board and who doesn't report to the Hannah Board. Our message will not change if deferred. What it sounds like to me, with all due respect, is we have some subjective feelings of people that may have learned about this after the fact for personal circumstances that are beyond the applicant's control. Our information will not change on this. Our use will not change. It's a matter of maybe getting people's feelings, but it doesn't change anything. If I didn't have a letter from the Hannah Board that went back and forth professionally and responded to every question that came up, I could see why you might want to defer this. I just don't necessarily think that you follow due process as a licensed real estate professional and owner in the city of Charleston, that it should be deferred just because someone has a subjective feeling.
Okay.
That's my comment.
I understand, and I hear your comment, and here's my comment. My comment is that a special exception requires the board to find, as a matter of fact, that you are not adversely impacting your neighbors. You are representing certain things about your business. I think that's fine. I'm sure that you are representing correctly. I'm sure that you're an honorable, lifelong citizen. You're going to do. The fact is, though, that you still have concerns of neighbors that they don't know whether or not their properties and their lives are going to be impacted by your proposed use. I would think that it would be something that would be an invitation for you to try to make sure that you explain thoroughly to the people who still have concerns or objections that you are a man of honor and that your business is going to be honorable, and that you're going to do the things that you're going to say you're going to do to the point where you can assure them. Then you have to come back, or you can just give up. Those are your options. But I'm giving you an opportunity because I think I sense that the board may not approve your application without an opportunity for you to talk a little bit more with the neighbors. And that's what I'm sensing. And so if you wanted us to vote now, yes or no, you got a risk.
I withdraw my motion, please.
All right, Mr. Morrison's withdrawn his motion to defer after I've supported the motion.
I'll
All right,
make a
what are we
motion
gonna
to
do?
defer based on letter D of the requirements for granting a variance.
All right.
Special exception.
Special exception, excuse me.
I just want to ask a question.
Okay.
Would a compromise be a deed restriction?
It could be. It depends on what you discuss with your neighbors.
Okay, so
So-
we couldn't make that a condition now.
I don't think that we're in a position to do that today.
I would vote for that.
You would vote for a deed restriction? Okay. Tell us about your reasoning.
Sounds to me like a minority of the Historic Ansonboro Association is here after the board that represents the association has taken a different position. And I don't know how we can expect the applicant to deal with all minority positions. That's what worries me.
Can I say something? We've
No,
let him
no,
talk.
we're
We've
not-
let
we're
him
not.
Talk again. Hannah did not, Historic Ansonboro Neighborhood Association did not approve this. They listened to them, and most of the board, we have a board member over there who sat in on the meeting. And a lot of the people didn't approve it because of the parking. They chose not to do anything. I'm a member of Hannah. We all are. I mean, if I, we could have gone back to Hannah and asked for a meeting and then have them come before us, which is what usually happens. Somebody comes before the full membership of Hannah, not the board. He didn't appear before the board.
Okay.
I have a substantial.
We really could be here all night. I don't want to be here all night. You can go back and forth all night. This is not what we do. All right.
I just wanted to respond to Mr. Morrison that I guess the difference is that, I mean, for me personally is because they are directly impacted. So that would be my only thought about deferring it until they could talk. I understand what
Well,
you're saying.
People that buy a house in Ansonboro with no driveway know what they're buying. People who have a driveway need to use it to the max, if they're lucky enough to have one. This problem, all we've heard tonight is parking, 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 parking. It's the same issue coming up with different circumstances every time. And I mean, we as a board, the city has a strategy about parking. I don't know that I understand it, frankly. But we could have every single application in front of us become a parking squabble. And it worries me about how we're going to handle these because they're all a little bit different. And this gentleman has given the strongest kind of assurance and guarantee that I can imagine an applicant giving, that he will do everything humanly possible. Now, he could still go lease 2, 4 places, whatever, to give them assurance. It seems to me, even at a high price, he's going to make a lot of money. So, I mean, that's one possibility to me that's still out there along with the zoning restriction, but this issue should be solved. We should not leave this building empty. That is the worst thing we can do.
Yeah, that's not.
No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. No, we're not. We're not going to comment anymore on this. No more public comment.
We had a similar project not long ago, at the other end of the neighborhood, where the tenant was seeking to open a restaurant that he provided parking through vouchers or through other systems and managed to present a similar approach. However, I think his use was perhaps slightly more intensive than this one. I am curious what the long-term parking implication is if we were to approve this 12 space exemption. Does that carry over to future owners? Is that a
run with the land?
Does that run with the land?
It runs with the land provided that they're doing the same activity. So a change of use would invalidate this special exception, and that person would have to come forward and state why their business model, their whatever is not. So if it were to come forward, exact same classroom setup like this, as an education type of, I can't remember exactly what our code calls it, but then it would be something that you come in, you buy my business out, and now you're doing this class setup, then you would have 12 spaces required and you would be exempt. But if you came in there now and you wanted to convert this to a restaurant or a grocery store or anything else, you're going to have to come back through and do a new special exception for that change of use.
I can just add one use, which is our least restrictive use, is office. Office, you get to exempt certain areas in the building. Unfortunately, these other uses pretty much require the larger space to be reviewed. So if someone were to come and just want to use it as an office, we would look at the office net area. If that net area required less parking, then if this special exception was approved for 12 umbrella based on the parking special exception being approved. Historically, we've done that time and time and time again because parking is such an issue. But chances are restaurant, any higher intensive use would have to come back to this board. Thank you.
All right, what would the deed restriction look like if it was a deed restriction? That's the other concern that I have. We don't have the language, and so we're just gonna say, condition.
You
that
mean that's the same as the zone restriction?
Well, that's, you said you'd be in favor of a deed restriction, so trying to explore that.
Well, I think Mr. Say offered a deed, I think he said deed
You
restriction.
did say deed restriction.
No parking.
Sorry.
You're more of a property lawyer than I am.
Well, I mean, here's the problem that I would have with the deed restriction from a legal perspective is that you don't, you're talking about a public right of way. And so how can you restrict a property from having the ability to park on a public right of way?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got, you know, there's no parking on the premises, so you can't say no parking on the, you know, all the parking will be on the premises, no parking will be, you can't say anything about parking on the property itself. And so then the only thing you're left with is whether or not you can restrict property on a public right of way, and I don't think you can. So, you know, and then we've got the enforceability question in terms of how can you enforce whether or not the employees and or guests and or patrons of this business are parking in front of these buildings or not? How do you enforce that? Do you require them to give the license plate numbers of every person that's associated with their business, give them to the city and tell the city officials to write them up and tow them whenever they see a car with one of these license plates? I don't know how you enforce that.
The only solution I see is a zone restriction that tracks the language of the Hannah letter. And for them to try to come to some compromise about a limited number of parking places, they can lease out at acquisitions that'll satisfy these residents. And otherwise, let them come back in 2 weeks, knock it out, get it done in 2 weeks, or not get it done. We'll make the decision here if they don't.
Right. So it's either, you know, either approving with the condition, you know, the motion would be approving with the condition that the staff, clients, and guests of 28 Hazel should not park in the residential parking spaces on Hazel Street, or we just defer it. So, and I'm not suggesting that motion would be approved and would carry the necessary votes if we move to approve with conditions. I'm just saying that those seem to be the two options, or third option would just be a motion to deny the application altogether. Let's move on.
And I made the motion to defer one so that we would have discussion under the circumstances of
Right.
deferment, and that we weren't just discussing in general.
Okay.
Thank you. And the reason I supported the deferral is I don't know the content of their purchase contract, but generally purchase contracts have conditions that have to be satisfied. And I would, if not, and again, it's unfair for me to speculate what's in there, but this would be a reasonable thing to expect. Just to have lost the right to purchase a contract. And I reiterate what was said by somebody else earlier, that I don't know that you can find a better user of this property as described. But again, I think there's a communication opportunity here to make.
Yeah, I agree. And then I also have a concern about deferring this thing and having to come back here in 2 weeks and go through this again. I mean, that's honestly.
We can shortcut it. We know the issues.
Yeah.
We ought to ask the parties, try to work it out and tell them both, my view, if you don't work it out, we will make the decision. We
Right.
don't know what decision we're gonna make.
Right.
That's the best compromise advice we can give them.
Right. And then if we do come back here in 2 weeks, we will adhere to the timing rules in terms of how much time each side gets to speak. So, all right, so we have a motion to defer, and do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Richards seconds the motion to defer.
The only other discussion is, do you want us to amend it to narrow it to parking solution so that we don't open the door up to any other?
Well, I mean, I don't think we can or want to limit what the parties are going to discuss. I mean, they're either going to talk about it and figure out a solution to their common problem, or they're going to not find a solution, and the guy is either going to, Mr. C is either going to come back here or he's going to lose his contract. I don't know which, but that's where we are. So. All right, so we have a motion, we have a second to defer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion is deferred. If you can't work it out, then we'll work it out for you, and we'll do it in a far more expedient way next time. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, or staff, you want this back on the 5th?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think as long as they make the application for you, we want it back on.
Well, there's no application.
Well,
so
excuse
it's-
Discussion, if they lose the contract, then we'll just take it off.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That person doesn't have a sticker residential.
All right, Ms. Bennett is recused, but we're gonna move on here to B7, which is 8 Stocker Drive in Old Windermere, Council District 11, TMS number 421-06-00-112, zoned SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a one-story carport with a 2-foot, 7.5-inch east side setback. 9 feet are required. The owners are Jeff and Rachel McDowell. The applicant is Ashley Jennings. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so here is an aerial where you can see this property on at 8 Stockard. This is actually a property that came before the board not that long ago for, I believe it was a variance that staff supported that allowed for the subdivision of this lot so that the 8 Stockard residents could be retained, as well as additional development to occur on what had previously been this property. Here you can see this is in the SR2 neighborhood, our zoning district here in the Old Windermere neighborhood. Staff can find, based on the fact that we just completed a process to subdivide this lot to approve additional homes on the new subdivided lots, cannot find that there's a hardship related to the request for this carport to have the reduced setback, particularly the reduced setback at the level that is being requested. And so staff is recommending denial of this variance. And here are elevations just so you can just see how that would project into that. It's recommending denial of the variance.
All right, the city recommends denial of the application for 8 Stocker Drive. Thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody opposed to the application for 8 Stocker? Seeing no one in opposition, Ms. Jennings, is there anything you'd like to say more about it?
Thank you. I'll make it quick.
Okay.
Fortunately, we're not talking about parking on the street on this application. I'm an architect and I'm working with the current owners of property that did not own the property when the property was subdivided. They just purchased this property and have moved in. And once they moved in, they realized that they have no covered place to park. And so I don't know if y'all can advance just to show the site plan. And so what they've asked me to do is to look at the possibility to create a porte cochere. It's very small, but the idea is just to put a couple of posts and a roof over here on the side to be able to park underneath it. It's not an enclosed structure. What we believe is the hardship here, and typically what we look at when we're looking at a hardship is what makes this lot unique that would require us to ask for a variance. Why is this lot unique? This is an existing historic building that's been added onto. My clients had no control over when the subdivision happened, but in order to create any kind of covered parking on the site, they would have to have either a front yard setback or a side yard setback to create it. And that's what I would say is the unique condition of this lot. As far as reasonableness, I believe that it is rather close to the property line, but the intent here is just to have a covered place to park their car.
All right, questions for Robert or the city?
And main reason for the denial was, what was the main reason for that?
The main reason for the denial was just we do not find that there's a hardship from a unique lot standpoint. This lot was just recently created to accommodate the development that has occurred, including the addition to the historic home and the proposed construction of another home adjacent on the new lot that was created. So from a staff perspective, this was acknowledging Ms. Jennings' point about these are new owners. They just bought the property, so they are not the ones who did the subdivision. But it's not a unique lot. We just approved.
So isn't the issue here whether a home that has parking next to it meets a hardship test because it would prefer to have covered parking next to it?
Correct. Right. There is parking on site. That's not a part of the issue. It is purely they would like the owner, our understanding from the application is that the owners would prefer that parking to be covered.
Yeah.
And that creates the setback issue. Just parking in your driveway, not an issue. Once you put a roof structure over that, and supports, that becomes the setback issue.
You know, personally, I don't like to get rained on either, but I just can't see how difference between covered and uncovered meets the hardship test. Lots of people have
Right.
uncovered parking.
Yeah. All right. So anybody have a motion?
I'll move forward tonight.
Okay, Ms. Grass moves to deny. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously approved to deny the application for 8 Stratford Drive. Thank you, Ms. Jennings. Sorry. Grant the variance. All right. The next item on the agenda is the 8 to Piedmont Avenue, Wagner Terrace, Council District 6, PMS number 463-11-03-044, zoned SR2, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow an HVAC stand with a 3.2 foot north side setback and 3.2 foot rear setback. 9 feet and 25 feet are required. The owner is Goodman Wholesale LLC. The applicant is Andy Goodman. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, so you see the property here on Piedmont Avenue in the aerial. This is in the, as mentioned, SR2 zoning district. This is a property where they have, I think I have the elevations here, where you can see that this property has been raised to address FEMA issues related to this property and the house. As a result of that, they are requesting to build the HVAC stand above the grade, because that becomes a encroachment into the setback. So that is why they've requested this variance. The request is reasonable. They have representation from the neighboring property that they don't have a problem with the request. You can see it is somewhat narrow space to be able to do that, to get that important equipment out of potential flood areas. So staff is recommending approval of this variance.
All right, thank you, Robert. Anybody have an opposition to Piedmont Avenue's application? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner applicant present? Anything you'd like to say as a motion?
Motion.
Okay. Mr. Goodman, I'll give it to you. I'll give Mr. Bennett the second. All in favor?
That was a unanimous motion.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No opposed. The motion passes unanimously and the variance is granted for 2 Piedmont Avenue. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Tipples, did Mr. Goodwin make the motion?
Yes,
Second.
Mr. Goodwin made the motion. Mr. Bennett seconded the motion.
Thank you.
All right.
It was a third and a fourth.
All right, the next item on our agenda is B9205 Wentworth Street, Charleston Village, Council District 8, PMS number 457-03-03-155, zone DR1, requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a 2-story addition with a 5-foot 7-inch south side setback. 12 feet are required, and to increase lot coverage from 48% to 52%, 35% limitation. The owner is Kate Bonsall and Bruce Grau. The applicant is John Morris, Bow County Architects. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, you can see the property here on the aerial, sort of. They all look a little like they're ghosts as they're fading in, but this property is on, I'm sorry, I'm losing it there. It's on Wentworth Street. This subdivision is a little different in that it is, I want to say it's alley loaded, but I'm not quite sure if those constitute alleys based on our definition, but it loads from the rear. So on the aerial here, you can see the rear of the property faces inward. The front of the property is out towards Wentworth. That's important because of the addition that they're proposing. Mainly focuses again inward, not towards Wentworth. Here on the zoning map, you can see again, this is DR1. This is a part of a community where they actually maintain their own streets as private streets, which again is important because again, this addition again moves towards that private street and they do have support from their neighbors within the subdivision there. So you can see the original plat there. Here you can see the elevations. The pinkish property, hopefully you can see on the map, is the subject property 205 Wentworth. This is that back portion of the property, as I mentioned, that's accessed off of the alleyway or access drive, essentially, that winds through the rear of these properties. You can see there. All right, so this is the existing setbacks and floor plan. This would be the addition. Again, the proposal is mostly towards the rear of the property and is supported by their neighbors. It does not create any issues for the larger community, doesn't create any precedents. These lots are very small, so the lot coverage, any attempt to modify the living conditions is going to exacerbate those existing lot coverage issues. And so with that, staff is in support of this. And again, they did have support of the neighboring properties.
All right, thank you, Robert. Do we have anybody in here in attendance in opposition to the application for 205 Wentworth Avenue? Okay, seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owners? All right, so applicants are here, owners are not. Any comments that you have? Anybody have any questions for the city? Anybody? No. Ms. Grass moves to approve. Mr. Morrison seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes. And the variance for 205 Wentworth Street is granted. Thank you. All right, the final item on our agenda, B10 to F Street, West Side, Council Exhibit 4, EMS number 463-16-03-035, Zone DR1, requesting a special exception under Section 54-501 to allow construction of a single-family residence on a lot of insufficient size. Lot size 2,554 square feet, 4,000 square feet are required. Requesting a variance from Section 54-301 to allow construction of a single-family residence with a 1 foot 3 3/4 inch south side setback, a 4.43 foot total side setback, and having a 50% lot occupancy. 9 feet, 15 feet are required, and the 35% lot occupancy limitation is present. The owner is Mulberry Street Development. The applicant is Will Easterland, Mulberry Street Development. Mr. Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, our board, you can see the property here in the aerial. This is similar to the property you looked at earlier today, in that it is on F Street, backs onto the crosstown. Again, this is an area where many of these lots are substandard for the zoning DR1. And so while staff would nominally support the special exception to allow construction of a single family home on this lot due to the insufficient lot area, staff cannot find that there is a hardship as it relates to the request for the lot coverage and setbacks, particularly to the extent that those are requested. Staff, in reviewing this, felt that there could be a smaller, more in context solution that would possibly still need some level of a request, but not to the extent that the current request is asking for. Again, not too dissimilar from what you saw earlier this evening at the other property here on F Street. And so for that reason, staff is recommending denial of this application.
All right, thank you, Robert. So we've got a city recommendation for denial. I don't know if there's anybody here in opposition. Yeah, no. Both of you are in favor of the application? That's
Not parties.
Oh, okay, non-party, okay. All right, so I guess you're the only one with an interest in 2F, so we'll hear from you, Will.
Sure, so,
You want to come on up here?
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
In general, I don't find the proposed, architecture of the building to be out of context or anything. I think what makes it a little bit different on that site is that it has a garage that is not under the building. So it's not lifted all the way up with the drive-under garage. It's a separate building that is, well, not a separate building, a separate volume connected to the main volume that just happens to be one car parking. And it's here submitted in this, presentation is not accurate. What happened here, and it's not the board's fault and it's not zoning's fault, but the architect that designed this, used GIS mapping and GIS has it wrong. That's not the outline of the plat, of the plot. I had it resurveyed. It actually made the lot a good deal smaller and created the majority of these, variance needs. So I understand that had we had accurate, survey to begin with, we very well may not be in this position. I'm familiar with what's happening just up the street at 2F. So by all rights, very reasonably, I would have just submitted for a lot of insufficient size. However, given that we're here having the conversation, I don't find requesting the variances to be problematic. Of course, not being a developer, I get it. But it is a similar type request to, having additional parking, privacy, or security when you're up under the highway there. The lot is particularly compromised as far as desirability goes. Again, not board problem specifically, but it's at the end of F Street. It dead ends into overgrowth and wooded stuff, and it's right under a big billboard and under the highway. So again, I'm asking for some relief just from the fact that this was an oversight by the architect. It was previously approved as you see it here. So again, architecture was not the problem. Mr. Summerfield, suggested that we would find something more in keeping with the street. That wasn't the conversation when this was previously approved. It is now just a little bit too big because of the error with the survey. So I understand that had we started from a different position, we might not be here. However, for the lot, it is zoned DR1. That side of F Street, which is the east side of F Street, has multiple lots that are DR1 and DR2F. So it doesn't seem to be, an issue with the neighborhood overall. The west side of F Street is all my lot occupancy today under this application is 50% and not 35 of DR1. 50% is the lot occupancy of DR2F, which is directly across the street, and other lots along F Street. So again, we're not breaking the mold here for what's happening on F Street in general. This DR1 zoning spot seems to be a bit of a holdover from when the Instant House stuff was planned a little bit further up north of the peninsula. There's no other DR1 in the area at all. So it seems to be a bit of an anomaly. And again, not the board's problem. I'm not here requesting a zoning change. I'm just sort of making the case for myself and time because this was already approved. We just happened to catch an error when we were going through the building review permit process. And so by all rights, it's wrong, but it was never problematic to begin with, architecturally speaking. Mr. Isherly, can you point out on this drawing where the actual property line is? Because I'm having a hard.
Yeah, so this line actually shifted up to here. It's actually much more square than this, or rectangular, I suppose. So there's a huge billboard and right under the highway here. So the property line shifted up, man, 8 feet.
Is it just that south edge that was corrected?
Yes, nothing else changed.
Mr. Bennett, we do have the drawing that I think he's referring to that made it into the presentation when
And that was the original approved scenario. So insufficient size approved, architecture not a problem. It just happens to be a sort of a new hardship based on an error.
Who owns the property immediately to the south?
The city, nothing. It's overgrowth. It's overpass easement stuff.
What's been approved and by whom?
So you can see there the zoning appeals for a lot of insufficient size of the original site plan.
When they thought the lot was.
When they thought the lot was bigger.
about the lot
Yes.
figure.
Yep.
And Mr. Chairman, if I might, I just do want to clarify, it's not that the architectural is wrong, it was the mass, like, again, with the lot, the new understanding of what the lot size.
It's too big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
understood.
footprint.
Yeah, we're not here for BAR. They'll yell at me about
Does the
it.
city have any idea whether the property to the south will ever be
That's right.
utilized for anything?
Yes, it's going to be the low-line affordable housing development.
Okay.
So if you go back a couple, you can actually, so that, again, that GIS image is misleading. So is that one because it's showing something larger than what's actually there. Go back one more. I'm sorry, where the survey was. That one is accurate. That one is accurate. So, yeah.
But yeah, the neighboring properties will be a development that the city is working on.
So essentially, the issue is the lot is actually smaller than it was originally approved by BZA-Z, and so now the mass of the house is still large, but actually the mass is too much for the smaller
For
size
the,
of the lot.
for the
Correct.
new realized
Okay.
actual plat, yes, that's correct.
So what's your other alternative to a variance? Just shrink the house?
Speaking very honestly about it, if we just deleted the garage, which is, would the whole scenario goes away. The only reason I'm just putting it out there that I like to keep it is because it is a benefit to a property that would be otherwise fairly compromised just based on its location and everything else down there at the bottom end of F Street up under the billboard and the highway. It would just be a particularly nice feature to have. I understand that that's not what the board is for, but here we are.
It worries me a little bit that we don't have exact input about what the low-line plan, how it might be affected by the proximity of building and.
The building would be in the same location.
Yeah.
It would shift away from the property line some, but it would be the same scope of same scale of impact. It's still gonna be reasonably assuming, there's still gonna be a single family home on this lot. It's just gonna take up less than 50% of the lot as opposed to 50% of it. And again, if we had the same zoning as what's directly across the street, the conversation would be, we wouldn't be here. It'd be 50%, yes, but not lot coverage.
I can't remember looking at it earlier. Is there a streetscape so we can see what it would actually look like?
I don't know if it's in the presentation. I know I sent it to BAR for that very question, but that's the architect. Yeah, there you go.
I thought I remember seeing the garage, that's why I asked.
Yeah, so it's modest. It's not terribly impactful architecturally.
Would the city agree to the variance if he removed the garage? Or is that, do y'all need to go back and look at
I
it?
mean, we'd have to check to see what that changes it to, but I think that it would, I mean, obviously the garage will have a significant impact on lot coverage, so it'll reduce that.
Understood.
And I believe that's the side that has the most impact with the setbacks, if I'm,
It's actually the south side.
no, it's the south side.
Actually,
So
the south or west,
to,
whatever, yes.
to Commissioner Morrison's point, I can't recall exactly where the low line project has been approved, what its site plan looks like to see how close that becomes.
It would require moving that billboard that's there, which I know may be a
Yeah.
part of it, but I don't know that.
Can't remember
I'm not
those
super familiar. I've seen
details.
lots of plans for the low line if we ever get there, but I don't know that it wraps the side of this property.
Can you remind me on accessory buildings? If it was detached, would that be an accessory?
Building, which would allow it to have some encroachment into the setback, but I believe you still need to maintain.
It'd be limited in the square footage.
Well, one, there would be potentially a limit on the square footage. It would still count towards lot coverage. So we'd still have that as a potential concern. It does allow for some level of encroachment into the setback. I cannot remember, I apologize right off the top of my head what that would allow. So if we were looking to change any of the configuration, we'd have to go back and look at exactly what that is, including what the removal of the garage would do. But I think it does shift substantially down these requests. And again, to the applicant's point, when we were understanding from previous drawings that the lot was bigger, many of these things weren't as much of a concern. But again, now that the lot is in fact smaller, that's why it becomes more of an issue and a concern for us on now it has to meet the hardship requirement, where before it was just the special exception for the lot area.
And only the geometry of the project, you may still be required.
One of the reasons why the other side of the street might be a different type of zoning is because on that side of the street, that's where the highway is coming through, and there's a lot of vacant lots on that side as well that we've approved for building.
On the west side of that street?
I guess on the back side where the low line would be.
No, I wasn't remarking on that. I was remarking on the west side of F Street. So you can see in the image there, or I'm sorry, whichever screen you can see, the west side of F Street is DR2F and multiple lots along the east side of F Street are DR2F, which would allow for 50% lot occupancy, and so again, we would not be having this conversation.
I'd be sympathetic about that, Mr. Eastland, but the mistake in the survey has thrown some variables into this, and I'm just not comfortable. Seems to me y'all can come some accommodation about this, and bring something back to us that doesn't have so many moving parts. And I am sympathetic about the lot size coverage difference across the street. I don't see why your lot shouldn't be given similar benefit, frankly. These kinks worked out with the conversation. If they can be worked out, if they can't.
I'm willing to go ahead and concede my hand here, this development project, for all rights it is, will work without a garage. It will work without a garage. I would like to have a garage because it's a benefit for all the reasons that a garage is a benefit, not only just for the occupants of the home, it's just better looking for everybody. Subjective, I suppose. In the event that we can't come to a compromise in between the two, a smaller garage, meaning less lot coverage, doesn't give me a garage. So it's one or the other. Very well may not have been a problem if the lot had been properly recorded originally. I'm falling on relief of the board here, for the sake of the garage, because the math is fine without a garage. I mean, a lot of occupancy math. And if we do end up without a garage here, I would hope to ask for a bit more expediency with getting approval, and not come back to the board in a month to have the conversation again, because we know that more than likely a lot of insufficient size will be granted here to get the building there. And if the garage is deleted, the garage is deleted, and everybody will be okay. It's not as nice a project anymore. Again, not the board's problem, but building inspection is done. Zoning was previously done. We just happened to catch it during, I think, BAR. Frank Pinto may have said, "Hey, wait a minute." And so it just slung it back around and everybody went, "Dang, here we go." So all but ready to go.
Well, I appreciate you bringing it back because we've had projects that we were trying to get things closed out with the city after buildings have been.
All right, gang. What to do? I guess there's a couple options on the table. One would be to approve both with the condition that the garage is moved from the plans. Is that what I'm hearing? And
leave the garage. Or leave the garage.
or leave, yeah, I mean, that would just be a motion to approve.
And I hear from the city that it sounds like you'd rather have the opportunity to look at the project again if the garage is removed.
Yeah, again, so that becomes, and it's not just the garage. I mean, you do have the leg, the portion, I don't know if it's easy, that's behind the garage in terms of
Yeah, that volume would be.
whatever, however you need to reconfigure that because, and we do acknowledge that he's all the way through the process and, what the board would like to do. But for us, when this became a smaller lot, it moved into a variant situation. We know that it could be reconfigured to be something smaller and maybe not have quite the extent to which the variant. I think, again, it's a substandard lot, so some give and take is clearly warranted, not just the special exception. I think the lot coverage is one of those things where that's a reasonable request. The DR.
1 and 2.
Whatever the one across the street is. But for us, the extreme, if you would, of the setback request becomes more problematic with the fact that the lot got smaller. But we would be happy to have, work with the applicant and seeing a sketch of something if that
The
is.
lot got smaller to the benefit of the lot that's gonna be part of the low line. Am I
No,
correct?
it's just a billboard. It was, I guess.
Yeah, it's an odd graphical error in GIS. Nobody knows what caused it. We went looking through plats and surveys of record and got Palmetto back out there, and it was just an odd error in GIS. And so the billboard is actually inside the piece that I lost. So it didn't benefit the back of the property at all. It didn't change that strip of land where the low line's gonna be. It just took some bushes away from me.
And I believe that we actually heard that property about the billboard here at BZA-Z, that we had to approve that project. I mean, I'm ready to recommend deferral just so we can make sure that all of the logistics regarding the property and the application are accurate. If y'all think.
I'd second that.
Can I bring it to staff level review during that? Assuming the envelope gets down to where it is only a lot of insufficient size, which is.
So, yeah, so if you're within your previous approval and it's just updating drawings to reflect, then yes, right?
Because that.
At that point,
Back to when, with the original red stamp on there's only a lot of insufficient size.
Yeah, if you're within the framework of that lot of insufficient size special exception that's already been granted, then yes, we can administratively update your drawings to reflect, that you're within that. However, I will point out, I don't have any ability to go above that. So even if you're a lot of insufficient sizes, 3 feet smaller or whatever, that becomes a problem. Which actually the lot will automatically, because the lot's smaller, so, yeah. I think you still have to come back and update the lot. So, apologize, Mr. Chairman. So looking at the original drawings, your lot is insufficient size. Again, I'm not seeing on here where it indicated the original square footage, and I don't have in front of me your prior approval in terms of what we noticed it as. But right now, we're saying the lot size is 2,554 square feet. If that lot size is less than 2,000 or is less than whatever was advertised for this one, then I couldn't just administratively update. So yeah, you will still at the minimum have to come back for the special exception. Because they would have to grant basically a more intense special exception than has previously been
So
granted.
let me ask you this.
Same special
Hold on, time out. There's nothing that prevents us from granting the special exception on the insufficient lot size tonight. And
There's nothing, correct.
And either deferring or denying the variance, right?
Yes, sir.
So we could knock out the insufficient lot size tonight and then, whatever, defer the rest or whatever you want to do.
We don't need to change our motion.
That'd be
Can I
great.
do it all in
Restate
one?
your motion.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay,
all in one would be
make a
great.
motion to approve the special exception to allow construction of residents in a lot of insufficient size and to defer the variance requests.
Second.
All right, the motion's on the floor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. Okay, the special exception is granted as of tonight and the variance is deferred. Hopefully you can work that out.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Got it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, the big bucks, sir. Because that would,
Yeah.
I'm used to these being separate from my prior world.
Yeah.
These would have been separate items to act on
Right.
versus in one. And
Right.
so my head, it was one item, but yep,
No worries.
separating it out, perfect solution. All right.
I'm gonna say, again, for the record, this job's really hard to me.
Okay,